You know what they say about humans? They're supposed to be these soft, squishy little things that wouldn't hurt a fly. Well, whoever said that clearly never met Marcus Kane. I'm Veltar, by the way. 4th generation scout for the Krethat Collective, and I've seen my share of apex predators across 17 different star systems. But this human? This walking contradiction of flesh and fury? He made our most feared hunters look like cuddly pets having a tea party. The first time I encountered Kane, I was tracking a rogue Shadowclaw through the dense forests of Kepler 438b. Now, Shadowclaws aren't exactly what you'd call friendly neighbors. Picture a cross between a panther and a nightmare, with claws that could slice through titanium and a temperament that makes angry hornets seem reasonable. This particular beast had been terrorizing our mining operations for weeks, and 3 of our best hunters had already become its lunch. So there I was, creeping through the undergrowth with my plasma rifle charged and my nerves frayed, when I heard something that made my blood freeze. Singing. Someone was actually singing in a forest where death literally prowled on 4 legs. "Oh, what a beautiful morning, oh, what a beautiful day," came this ridiculously cheerful voice from somewhere ahead. Thought I'd finally lost my mind. Either that, or some poor soul was about to become the galaxy's most musical meal. I crept forward, expecting to witness a gruesome finale to what was obviously someone's last performance. Instead, I found Marcus Kane sitting cross-legged in a clearing, calmly preparing what looked like breakfast over a small fire. And sleeping peacefully beside him? 3 Shadowclaw cubs, curled up like oversized kittens. Jaw hit the forest floor so hard I'm surprised it didn't crack. Kane looked up at me with these startlingly blue eyes and grinned. "Morning, neighbor. Coffee?" He held up a steaming mug. "Fair warning though, it's strong enough to wake the dead." Hence the nickname. The cubs," I stammered, pointing at the sleeping predators. "Oh, these little angels? Found them yesterday after their mama had a rather unfortunate encounter with a mining laser. Poor thing was just protecting her babies." He scratched one of the cubs behind its ear, and it purred like a house cat. An armored, razor-clawed house cat, but still. You're not afraid?" Kane chuckled, a sound that somehow managed to be both warm and terrifying. "Friend, when you've survived 3 tours in the Martian ice wars, raised 4 kids on your own after your wife passed, and lived through last Tuesday's attempt at cooking, not much scares you anymore." That's when I noticed the makeshift graves nearby. Fresh dirt, carefully arranged stones, and what looked like carved wooden markers. "The mother?" I asked. Seemed only right. She was just doing what any good parent would do. Kane's expression grew serious for a moment. "Speaking of which, I don't suppose your people have any experience with raising orphaned apex predators? Because I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing here." I stared at him. This human, this supposedly fragile creature, had not only survived an encounter with a Shadowclaw but had buried it with respect and taken in its offspring. The same offspring that our hunters avoided at all costs. "You buried her," I said, still processing. "Course I did. Death deserves dignity, even when it comes with claws and an attitude problem." He paused, sipping his coffee. "Though I have to admit, explaining this to my daughter is going to be interesting. Hey sweetheart, Daddy adopted 3 alien death machines. Hope you don't mind sharing your room when we get home." One of the cubs stirred, opening eyes that glowed like amber stars. Instead of the expected growl or snarl, it looked at Kane and made a sound that was disturbingly close to a happy chirp. "Yeah, I know you're hungry, kiddo," Kane said, reaching into his pack. "Uncle Death's got you covered." Uncle Death. The cubs had somehow learned to associate this human with safety, with food, with protection. The most feared predators on 17 worlds had essentially adopted a human as their surrogate parent, and Marcus Kane? He seemed to think this was just another Tuesday. "So," he said, looking back at me while feeding what appeared to be synthesized meat paste to the cubs, "you wouldn't happen to know if there are any good veterinarians in this neck of the galaxy, would you? Because I'm pretty sure these little guys need their shots." 3 months later, I found myself standing in the most ridiculous scene the galaxy had ever witnessed. Marcus Kane's backyard had been transformed into what could only be described as a playground for apex predators. The cubs, now the size of small shuttlecraft, were playing fetch with what used to be a reinforced steel beam. Kane stood in the middle of it all, wearing an apron that read Galaxy's Best Dad in 17 different languages, apparently barbecuing something that smelled suspiciously delicious. "Veltar," he called out, waving a spatula. "Perfect timing. Hope you brought your appetite, because Nyx here caught a space elf yesterday, and there's no way we're finishing this ourselves." Nyx, the largest of the 3 cubs, looked up from her game of Destroy the Indestructible Toy and made that same chirping sound. Except now it was loud enough to rattle windows 3 blocks away. "She's gotten bigger," I observed, trying not to show how much that terrified me. "They all have. Growing like weeds, these kids. Though I have to say, explaining their dietary needs to the grocery store has been an adventure. Kane flipped what looked like a massive steak. Turns out, my adopted alien children need 40 pounds of raw meat daily isn't a conversation most people are prepared for. That's when I noticed the news crews. At least 6 different galactic networks had set up outside Kane's property line, their reporters speaking in hushed, reverent tones. The human known as Uncle Death continues to defy all scientific understanding, one was saying. His bond with the Shadowclaw triplets has revolutionized our understanding of interspecies relationships. Kane followed my gaze and rolled his eyes. Been like that for weeks. You'd think I'd discovered faster than light travel instead of just giving 3 kids a home. He scratched behind the ears of another cub, Storm, who was currently using a tree trunk as a chew toy. Though I have to admit, the book deals are tempting. Parenting across the species barrier has a nice ring to it, don't you think? The Galactic Council wants to study you, I told him. They're offering substantial compensation for your cooperation. Kane's expression darkened slightly. Study me? Like some kind of lab rat? Before I could answer, the third cub, Little Frost, came bounding over. Well, little being relative, considering she was now large enough to use me as a stepping stone. She nuzzled against Kane's side, making a sound that was part purr, part earthquake. Easy there, sweetheart, Kane murmured, his voice instantly gentle. Daddy's just talking to Uncle Veltar. Uncle Veltar. Somehow, I'd been adopted into this bizarre family structure. They want to understand how you do it, I continued. Every xenobiologist in the sector is baffled. Shadowclaws don't bond with other species. They don't even bond with each other outside of mating season. Kane was quiet for a moment, watching as his 3 impossible children played in the yard. Nix had found a hovercar to bat around like a toy mouse. Storm was teaching herself to climb by using the neighbor's communication tower. Frost was systematically destroying what used to be a garden shed. You want to know the secret, he finally said. It's not complicated. They were scared, alone, and hungry. I fed them, kept them safe, and treated them like they mattered. Same thing I did with my human kids. But the aggression protocols, the territorial instincts, what about them? Kane shrugged. My teenage daughter Emily was territorial too. Ever tried sharing a bathroom with a 16-year-old girl? Makes facing down an apex predator seem like a vacation. As if summoned by his words, a young woman emerged from the house, carrying what looked like a massive food dish. Emily Kane, 17 years old and apparently the only human teenager in the galaxy who considered Shadowclaws acceptable pets. Dad, the girls are hungry again, she called out. And Mom called. She wants to know if you're still planning to bring the grandkids to Sunday dinner. Your wife is accepting of this situation? I asked. Kane grinned. Lisa's a pediatric nurse. She's seen worse behavior from human toddlers. Though she did insist we reinforce the dining room furniture. That's when the real show started. Emily whistled, a sharp, clear sound that immediately got all 3 cubs' attention. They bounded over like oversized puppies, sitting in formation while she distributed their dinner. Good girls, she cooed, scratching each massive head in turn. Yes, you're such good girls. Daddy's precious little murder machines. I watched in stunned silence as 3 of the galaxy's most feared predators practically melted under the attention of a human teenager. The council's scientists, I started again. Can go study something else, Kane interrupted firmly. These aren't specimens. They're family. And I don't care how many degrees or fancy titles someone has, nobody experiments on my kids. There was steel in his voice now, and for the first time, I truly understood why the cubs had taken to calling him Uncle Death. It wasn't because he was dangerous to them. It was because he would become dangerous to anyone who threatened them. Besides, Kane added, his tone lightening as he watched Emily play with creatures that could level a city block, someone needs to teach the galaxy that maybe, just maybe, the scariest thing in the universe isn't claws or fangs or plasma cannons. What is it then? Marcus Kane smiled, and for a moment, I saw exactly what those cubs had seen in him from the very beginning. A parent who refuses to give up on their kids. And that, friends, is how a human armed with nothing but dad jokes and an unlimited capacity for love became the most feared and respected figure in 17 star systems.